CNC group break 24-4-10. We have got the 12-box case break of 25-26 Upper Deck Series 1. We have got a sizzle reel for Vancouver of Quinn Hughes. A Young Guns duel random between Montreal and Chicago of Ivan Demidov and Artyom Levshinov. And we've got a compositions of Robert Thomas for St. Louis. A Dazzlers for the Philadelphia Flyers of Owen Tippett, Canvas of Barbashev for Vegas, and a Cup Quest for Winnipeg of Hellebuck. An Encore for Nashville of Phillips Forsberg, Sizzle Reel of McKinnon for Colorado, Noah Ostlund, Young Guns for Buffalo. A Tracking Systems of Jordan Binnington for St. Louis, a Portraits for Dallas of Wyatt Johnston, and a Young Guns Outburst! Oh, I coughed. Nicholas Coco for Seattle. A Tracking Systems of Stuart Skinner for Edmonton, Luca Cagnoni, Young Guns for San Jose, and a Compositions for Chicago of Connor Bedard. Canvas of Dougie Hamilton for Carolina, Young Guns of Jacob Melanson for Seattle, and an goal-oriented of Kirill Marchenko for Columbus. An Encore for Colorado of Cale Makar. We have a Portraits Speckle of Matthew Wood for Nashville, and a Comrades for New Jersey of Jack Hughes and Luke Hughes. Or Compadres, not Comrades. A Compadres Speckle for San Jose of Toffoli and Celebrini. Canvas for Nashville of Yossi, and a Cup Quest for LA of Kempe. We have an Encore for Philly of Travis Sanheim, Bustle for Chicago of Bertuzzi, and a Young Guns for Boston of Michael Callahan. We have a Deluxe Base, numbered to 250 for Calgary of Mikhail Backlund, Jack Eichel and Mark Stone Compadres for Vegas, and a goal-oriented for Vancouver of Pettersson. Young Guns of Dylan Duke for the Tampa Bay Lightning, Portraits of Adam Fox for the Rangers, and a Young Guns canvas for the Nashville Predators of Ozzy Weisblatt. Clear cut base for Detroit of Michael Rasmussen, Encore for Tampa of Vasilevsky, and a sizzle reel of Cam Fowler for St. Louis. On to box 2. We have a Tracking System of Elvis Merzlikins for Columbus, Jack Finley Young Guns for Tampa, Goal-Oriented for Pittsburgh of Crosby. Dazzlers for Carolina of Kochetkov, canvas of Draisaitl for Edmonton, portraits of Levshinov for Chicago, Encore for Columbus of Fantilli, Butzel of Zyder for Detroit, and a Ryan Leonard Young Guns for Washington. We have an outburst base for the San Jose Sharks of Macklin Celebrini, a Bustle for St. Louis of Dylan Holloway, and a Portraits of Gabe Perreault for the Rangers. Canvas of Joel Eriksson for Minnesota, Young Guns for Edmonton, Quinn Hudson, and a Compositions for Pittsburgh of Crosby. Encore for Carolina of Kochetkov, portraits of Marcia So for Nashville, and a sizzle reel of Luke Evangelista for Nashville. Compadres for Colorado of Makar and McKinnon, Colton Dock, Young Guns for Chicago, and a compositions of Ovechkin for Washington. Tracking System Speckle of Aiden Hill for Vegas, Canvas for San Jose of Mario Ferraro, Cup Quest for San Jose of Eklund. Encore for the Rangers of Gabe Perreault, Sizzle Reel of Mason Marshmall for Dallas, and a Rodrigo Abels, Young Guns for Philadelphia. Tracking Systems for Minnesota of Gustafson, portraits for Toronto of Austin Matthews, and an Outburst Red, base number to 25 for Florida of E2 Louis Steranen.
What is Florida?
Florida. Canvas of Kirill Kaprizov for Minnesota. We have a Young Guns of Sam Rinzel for Chicago, and a goal-oriented for New Jersey of Jesper Bratt. Encore of Mackenzie Blackwood for Colorado, Bustle for Carolina of Seth Jarvis, and a Young Guns clear cut Parker Ford for the Winnipeg Jets. Box 3. No. I think Eric put your sweater on the back of the door. Tracking Systems for Nashville of UC Soros, Ryan Suzuki Young Guns for Carolina, portraits of Zyder for the Detroit Red Wings. Dazzlers for Columbus of Marchenko, canvas for LA of Brant Clark, compositions for Minnesota of Marco Rossi. Encore for LA of Brant Clark, Bustle for Anaheim of Leo Carlson. Artyom Levshinov, Young Guns for Chicago. Outburst base for Carolina of Jackson Blake, Bustle for Calgary of Nazem Kadri, and a compositions of Larkin for the Red Wings. Canvas of Samuel Montembeault for Montreal, Joaquin Kamel Young Guns for Nashville, and a Cup Quest of Kyle Connor for Winnipeg. Encore for Minnesota of Marco Rossi, Macklin Celebrini Speckle compositions for San Jose, and a sizzle reel of Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen for Buffalo. Tracking Systems for Dallas of Ottinger, Olivier Rodrigue Young Guns for Edmonton, and a portraits of Dylan Holloway for St. Louis. Bustle Speckle for Columbus of Wierenski, canvas for Anaheim of Dostal, and a goal-oriented of Panarin for the Rangers. Encore for Florida of Seth Jones, sizzle reel of Jared McCann for Seattle, and a Matthew Wood Young Guns for Nashville. Edmonton, Evan Bouchard. Compositions for Buffalo of Rasmus Dahlin. And a population count 500 of Vincent Trocheck for the New York Rangers. Young Guns of Rory Cairns for Calgary. Cup Quest for Nashville of Yossi. And a Young Guns canvas for the Tampa Bay Lightning of Jack Finley. We have an Encore Blue for the Islanders of Noah Dobson, an Encore of Lev Shinov for Chicago, and a Bustle for Toronto of Matthew Knies. We have a sizzle reel of McTavish for Anaheim, Young Guns of Nikita Tolopilo for Vancouver, and a Compositions for Colorado of Makar. Dazzlers for Washington of Obi, Canvas of Brandon Hagel for Vancouver, Cup Quest for Vancouver of Thatcher Demko. JT Miller, Encore for the Rangers, Sizzle Reel of Cole Perfetti for Winnipeg, and a Young Guns of Justin Robidas for Carolina. Outer Space for Buffalo of Matthias Samuelson, Tracking Systems of Dustin Wolf for Calgary, and a Portraits of Malkin for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Canvas for Boston of Charlie McAvoy. We have a Dalibor Dvorsky, Young Guns for St. Louis, and a Goal-Oriented for Washington of Ovechkin. Encore for Chicago of Bedard, Cup Quest Speckle for New Jersey of Timo Meyer, and a Compadres for Carolina of Sebastian Aho and Andrei Svechnikov. Blue Encore for Calgary of Zane Parikh. We have an Encore of William Eklund for San Jose, and a Sizzle Reels of Kent Johnson for Columbus. Sizzle Reel Speckle of Quinn Hughes for Vancouver, Canvas for Anaheim of Zellweger, and a Cup Quest of Nietzsche for Colorado. Encore of Werenski for Columbus, Bustle of Matt Boldy for Minnesota, Colton Dock Young Guns for Chicago. Encore of Tage Thompson for Buffalo, Compadres for Detroit of DeBrincat and Larkin, Young Guns for Tampa of Jack Finley. Numbered to 100 exclusive base for the Islanders, Jean-Gabriel Pajot, Sizzle Reel of Draisaitl for Edmonton, and a Lucas Raymond Goal-Oriented for Detroit. Canvas of Drew Doughty for LA, Skylar Brindamore Young Guns for Carolina, and a Portraits of Marchessault for Nashville. All right. Quick water, and then we'll see what Anna's been working on. Alrighty, we have for Edmonton, Compadres of McDavid and Draisaitl, Toffoli and Celebrini for San Jose, Laine and Slavkovsky for Montreal, a red of Panarin and Lafreniere for the Rangers, Ovechkin and Tom Wilson for Washington, Speckle for New Jersey of the Hughes brothers, Hellebuck and Morrissey for Winnipeg, McDavid and Draisaitl Speckle for Edmonton, Forsberg and Yossi for Nashville, Portraits of Matthew Tkachuk for Florida, Josh Morrissey for Winnipeg, Brant Clark for LA, a red for Pittsburgh of Evgeny Malkin, Seth Jarvis for Carolina, Matt Zuccarello for Minnesota, Dalibor Dvorsky for St. Louis, Alex Ovechkin for the Washington Capitals, Quinn Hughes for Vancouver, Matthew Wood for Nashville, Dougie Hamilton for New Jersey, Noah Ostlund for Buffalo, Connor Bedard for Chicago, Tracking Systems for Vegas, Aiden Hill, Jeremy Swayman for Boston, Samuel Urson for Philadelphia, Charlie Lindgren for Washington, Jeremy Swayman Speckle for Boston. Jacob Markstrom for New Jersey. Andrei Vasilevsky for Tampa. Joseph Woll for Toronto. Igor Shesterkin for the Rangers. Connor Hellebuck for Winnipeg. Yaroslav Askarov for San Jose. Logan Thompson for Washington. Kochetkov for Carolina. Joey Decord for Seattle. Samuel Montembeault for Montreal. Cup Quest of Erik Karlsson for Pittsburgh, Zach Hyman for Edmonton, Speckle of J-Rob for Dallas, Mitch Marner for Toronto, Alex DeBrincat for Detroit, Kirill Kaprizov for Minnesota, Jason Robertson for Dallas, Timo Meier for New Jersey, Jared McCann for Seattle, Chris Kreider for the Rangers, and Anichas Speckle for Colorado. Canvases for Edmonton. We have Matthias Ekholm. On the run. We have Lafreniere for the Rangers. Kyle Connor for Winnipeg. Black and white of Anthony Duclair for the Islanders. Tage Thompson for Buffalo. Anders Lee for the Islanders. Alex Ovechkin for Washington. Philip Gustafson for the Minnesota Wild. Josh Norris for the Buffalo Sabres. Connor Bedard for the Chicago Blackhawks. Christopher Tanev for Toronto. Jack Hughes for New Jersey. Sidney Crosby for Pittsburgh. Elvis Merzlikins for Columbus. Brandon Montour for Seattle. Young Guns canvas for Chicago of Colton Dach. We have K-Andre Miller for the Rangers, Dmitry Voronkov for Columbus, Anthony Duclair for the Islanders, Kevin Hayes for Pittsburgh, William Eklund for San Jose, Blake Coleman for Calgary, black and white of K-Andre Miller for the Rangers, Jeremy Swayman for Boston. Sizzle Reels, we have Wyatt Johnston for Dallas, Matthew Nyes for Toronto, Speckle of Kyle Connor for Winnipeg, Sebastian Aho for Carolina, Kirill Marchenko for Columbus, Speckle of Forsberg for Nashville. For Winnipeg, we have Kyle Connor, Philip Forsberg for Nashville, Dakota Joshua for Vancouver, Leo Carlsson for Anaheim, Sidney Crosby for Pittsburgh, Owen Tippett for Philly, Matthew Tkachuk for Florida, Arturi Lehkonen for Colorado. Austin Matthews for Toronto, Sergei Bobrovsky for Florida, Sam Reinhart for Florida, David Pastrnak for Boston, Brady Tkachuk for Ottawa, Jakob Markstrom for New Jersey. Encores, we have Kucherov for Tampa, Mika Zibanejad for the Rangers, Matthew Nyes for Toronto, Morgan Riley for Toronto, UC Saros for Nashville, Alexander Barkov for Florida, Andrei Svechnikov for Carolina, Moritz Seider for Detroit. Ivan Demidov, Encore Blue for the Montreal Canadiens. Sergei Bobrovsky for Florida, David Pastrnak for Boston, Igor Shesterkin for the Rangers, Alex Ovechkin for Washington, Jordan Binnington for St. Louis, Mark Stone for Vegas, Evan Bouchard for Edmonton, Juraj Slavkovsky for Montreal, a blue for New Jersey of Timo Meier, Cutter Gauthier for Anaheim, Brock Faber for Minnesota, Drake Batherson for Ottawa, Matty Beniers for Seattle, Demidov for Montreal, Zane Parikh for Calgary, Timo Meier for New Jersey, and Dylan Strome for the Caps. We have compositions for the Islanders, Matthew Barzal, Quinn Hughes for Vancouver, Andrzej Kopitar for LA, Tim Stützle for Ottawa, Clayton Keller for Utah, Sean Monahan for Columbus, Matthew Tkachuk Speckle for the Florida Panthers, Sebastian Aho for Carolina, Kyle Connor for Winnipeg, Austin Matthews for Toronto, Jason Robertson for Dallas, Jack Hughes for New Jersey, Speckle of Erik Karlsson for Pittsburgh, Nick Suzuki for Montreal, David Pastrnak for Boston, Matthew Tkachuk for Florida, Matty Beniers Speckle for Seattle, Erik Karlsson for Pittsburgh, Matty Beniers for Seattle, Lane Hudson for Montreal, Connor McDavid for Edmonton. A few more encores, Devin Tays for Colorado, Oliver Moore for Chicago, Frank Vetrano for Anaheim, Mark Scheifele for Winnipeg. Tracking systems for the Islanders, Ilya Sorokin, Lucas Dostal for Anaheim, Samuel Urson Speckle for Philly, Sergei Bobrovsky for Florida, Mackenzie Blackwood for Colorado, Cup Quest for Buffalo, Tage Thompson, Igor Shesterkin for the Rangers, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins for Edmonton, Compadres of Matthews and Nylander for Toronto, Kucherov and Hedman for Tampa, and Tkachuk and Barkov for Florida. We have goal-oriented for Nashville, Steven Stamkos, Speckle of McDavid for Edmonton, Sam Reinhart for Florida, Lucas Raymond, Speckle for Detroit, Nathan McKinnon for Colorado, Jack Eichel for Vegas, Braden Point for Tampa, Leon Draisaitl for Edmonton, Nikita Kucherov for Tampa, Kirill Kaprizov for Minnesota, Connor McDavid for Edmonton, William Nylander for Toronto, Brady Tkachuk for Ottawa, Sizzle Reel for Colorado of Makar, McDavid for Edmonton, Ovechkin for Washington, Jack Hughes for New Jersey, Dougie Hamilton, Portrait Speckle for New Jersey, Patrick Laine, Portraits for Montreal, Leon Draisaitl for Edmonton, Cale Makar for Colorado, Linus Ullmark for Ottawa, Tage Thompson for Buffalo, Canvas for Edmonton, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Black and White of Dmitry Voronkov for Columbus, Jake Neighbors for St. Louis, William Nylander for Toronto, JT Compher for Detroit, Kiefer Sherwood for Vancouver, Dazzlers for Utah, Logan Cooley, for Chicago, Connor Bedard, Martin Nietzsche for Colorado, Sam Reinhart for Florida, Pink for Buffalo of Tage Thompson, Thomas Harley for Dallas, Pink of Bowen Byram for Colorado, Jake Neighbors for St. Louis, and Bowen Byram again for Colorado. Jenner for Columbus, John Carlson for Washington, William Carlson for Vegas, Wyatt Johnston for Dallas, Tracking Systems for Vancouver, Thatcher Demko, for LA, Darcy Kemper, for Detroit, Cam Talbot, Cup Quest for Chicago of Connor Bedard, Compadres of Panarin and Lafreniere for the Rangers, Population Count 1000 for Nashville of Philip Forsberg, Portraits of William Eklund for San Jose, Nazem Kadri for Calgary, Goal-Oriented for Toronto of Matthews, Sizzle Reel Speckle for Colorado of McKinnon, Canvas of Capo Caco for Seattle, Logan Stankoven Canvas for Carolina, Dazzlers of Matthew Barzal for the New York Islanders, Compositions to Foley for San Jose, Gensel for Tampa, Bustle of Stankoven for Carolina, Owen Tippett for Philly, Jake Gensel for Tampa, Sam Reinhart for Florida, Zach Werenski for Columbus, Brady Tkachuk for Ottawa, Jesper Bratt for New Jersey, Jonathan Marchessault for Nashville, Speckle for Ottawa of Brady Tkachuk, Lane Hudson for Montreal, Kiefer Sherwood for Vancouver, and Alex Tuck for Buffalo. We have a holotypes for the Dallas Stars of Miro Heiskanen. Outburst base for Carolina, we have Shane Gostisbehere. For Colorado, we have Parker Kelly. We have Yaroslav Askarov for the San Jose Sharks. For the LA Kings, Quinton Byfield. New Jersey, Stefan Nason. Barclay Goodrow for the San Jose Sharks. Clear cut base are you numbered? Nope, it's the cards behind. Justin Falk for the Buffalo Sabres, clear cut base. Rasmus Sandin, clear cut for Washington. Number to 100, Henry Thrun, exclusives base for the San Jose Sharks. Number to 250, Brandon Duhaime, deluxe base for the Washington Capitals. And we have a base autograph for the Chicago Blackhawks, Lucas Reichel. All right, Young Guns time. We have got for Seattle, Victor Ostman. We have Yanni Nyman for Seattle. Gabe Perreault for the Rangers. Riley Duran for Boston. Nicholas Coco for Seattle. Tim Wash for Anaheim. Mark Catcomb for the Islanders. Jacob Skarek for the New York Islanders. Ivan Demidov for the Montreal Canadiens. Donovan Sabranko for Ottawa, Sam Morton for Calgary, Rory Cairns for Calgary, Zane Parikh for Calgary, Skarek for the New York Islanders, Ian Moore for Anaheim, Victor Ostman for Seattle, Tim Wash for Anaheim, Parker Ford for Winnipeg, Perreault for the New York Rangers, Ethan Frank for Washington, Dominic Shine for the Detroit Red Wings, Justin Robidas for Carolina, Elias Pettersson for Vancouver, Jacob Gosher for the Philadelphia Flyers, Flyers. Owen Sillinger for Columbus. Ville Koivunen for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Cam Lind for San Jose. Snuggerud for St. Louis. Ozzy Weisblatt for Nashville. Matthew Robertson for the Rangers. Oliver Moore for Chicago. Carter Mazur for Detroit. Artyom Levshinov for the Chicago Blackhawks. Joaquin Kamel for Nashville. Jacob Quillen for Toronto. Rodrigo Abels for Philadelphia. Ian Moore for Anaheim. We have Carson Dorwart for Philadelphia. Noah Ostlund for Buffalo. Sam Rinzel for Detroit. Jacob Kocher for Philly. Parker Ford for Winnipeg. Dalibor Dvorsky for St. Louis. Carson Dorwart for Philly. Mark Catcomb for the Islanders. Ozzy Weisblatt for Nashville. Yanni Nyman for Seattle. And Ville Koivunen for Pittsburgh. We have an outburst young gun for the Boston Bruins of Riley Duran. And one more outburst young guns, this time for the Rangers, of Gabe Perreault. And then, last but not least, we have a few Young Guns canvases. So the first is for the Carolina Hurricanes, Ryan Suzuki. Then we have for Nashville, Matthew Wood. Black and white Young Guns canvas for San Jose of Cam Lund. And Zane Parikh for Calgary. All right, folks, I have one random to do for the dual Young Guns. So I'll do a quick left-right random for that. All right, 3 times. 1, 2, 3. The right side's got it, which is Chicago.